for a week. Greetings, heathens and heretics, and welcome to May Metal Monthly. May Metal Monthly.
Is he pissing out of his window?
I wouldn't be surprised. That's what they do. That's what they do in London, and it's become that cramped. You just go straight out the window.
They're all,
Stop it, you! I was shutting the window because there was a bit of background noise. It's because the weather's turned. We got kids playing outside, and there's planes going overhead because everyone's going on holiday. It's all happening.
Damn those pesky kids!
I'm shutting the real world out.
Like, he's got all the kids in his neighborhood have got like nicknames for him. He's like Crazy Man with a Snake. And then when they walk past his house, they shh, Snake Man.
Anyway,
don't wake him up.
Anyway,
I
enough of
that's true.
Enough of drummers pissing out of windows. How's everybody?
I'm a drummer. What else am I going to do?
Well, this is it.
It's like a drummer walks into a shop and goes, "Have you got any drumsticks, mate?" And he goes, "You're a drummer, aren't you?" Yeah. He goes, "This is a fish shop, mate." You know.
Yeah, it's never happened, but I've come close.
Right, before this goes tits up, before we even start,
I think it already has. I think it's too late for that now.
Probably has. It's been a busy couple of weeks, isn't it? We may as well just kick straight off, really, straight off the bat, shall we? With May's albums and start with Under the Crooked Claw. Ryan Waste from Municipal Waste, his Batside Project second album, living out New Wobham dreams, really, in it, and worshiping a bit of Motorhead worship. But yeah, this is proper good fun. I think just by the album artwork, it's going to be fucking good fun.
I'd agree with that.
Solid album. And it's like one of those nice things where, I was like, you guys, you sent us the copy to listen to, and then I was like on Facebook, and my mate Ian from Korea, who now lives in North Carolina, he's like posting on Facebook, "Oh, my mate Chris has just done his new band have done this album." And I'm like, "Oh, that's the album I got sent." Hang on, one of my mates from Korea is best mates with Chris from Bat, who's the drummer. That was pretty cool. So yeah.
Well, you got no excuse but to give it a proper good listen, then, have you?
I have. It's good. It's a solid album. It's definitely worth listening to. You're bang on. It's new wave of British heavy metal. There's a tinge of Motorhead to it. Good album cover. Great solos. Good riffs. I mean, as well, when you look at the pictures of the band, you just those guys live metal.
Yeah, fucking right. Yeah, like I said, it's living the heavy metal dream. It's all leather stuff and street metal. I mean, you can hear sort of his sort of Municipal Wasteisms in there. There's little touches of thrash, but it is generally pretty much old school. And yeah, street metal, I think, is the is on the album anyway, isn't it? So it kind of fits the it sort of fits the bill, really. But yeah, I really fucking enjoyed it. First listen, I was like, yeah, this is good fun. But after a few more, it's like, yeah, it's just proper fucking good old.
That's the gift that keeps on giving. It is one of those records where the more you listen to it, the more you'll hear a new bit, a new riff, a new nuance, a new solo. But you don't have to pay attention to any of that because on the surface of it, it's just a massive, loud, heavy, thrashing rock and roll album, which, like, it's a perfect example of and there are a few albums we'll talk about on this episode that I think fit this bill, but it's an example of a record where it just goes to show you don't have to do anything innovative or change kind of the established order of things. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You just have to play with passion, with sincerity, and capture all of that energy on tape. And that's exactly what this album's done. So I've been giving it some proper volume. I love it. I think it's great.
And
I think some of the song titles are also just classic, like Revenge of the Wolf. That's a great song.
That's my favorite song. It's only it's less than 2 minutes, I think, and it's just fucking
street banger. And then Right for Exorcism, Vampire Law, great, good title, good titles, good tracks. Definitely worth going to see live if they.
Ryan's dropping in his love for horror movies as well. You got Horror Vision, which has got all horror movie inspired lyrics as well. It's just
that's great, and it just ties together two worlds that a lot of us are passionate about, and there's some deep cuts in terms of some of the films that he mentions in there. It's really, it's fun just to kind of spot them, few little Easter eggs along the way.
Well, for those of you that are, that heavily into horror movie, I'm not one of those people, but But yeah, he really, when myself and Voice of Reason spoke to him back in October in Bristol, he alluded to, you know, his love for horror movies and everything like that. So, you know, that kind of struck up a conversation between those two. But yeah, it's what a side project should be, isn't it? Like, don't overthink it. Just go out and play kind of what you enjoy playing, and just have some fun with it.
What's on the list next?
One that I was a little bit apprehensive of, like hearing the first couple of singles, and wondering if they were going to kind of carry on the same sort of delivery. Was the new Knock Loose album, You Won't Go Before You're Supposed To. I had a feeling that they were going to dial back the heaviness and the massive riffs, the massive breakdowns, all that, and go. I don't know why, but they've been getting bigger and bigger. I kind of had a feeling they might go down a more accessible route, but I don't know what you three think. Padre, I'm not sure if this is up your street, if you've listened to it, but they certainly haven't dialed it back on this one. It is an absolutely fucking savage record. It's like about 30 minutes, and it's just relentless, and it's so crushingly heavy at times that I was more than happy to be proved wrong on that.
No, I haven't listened to it yet.
But the one thing about Knock Loose is those vocals will polarize a lot of people.
Yeah, I think I struggle with the vocals now. So Knock Loose, they're a band I have no history with, other than we saw them at Bloodstock. Was it last year or the year before?
It was last year, wasn't it?
Last year.
Yeah.
And like, you'd been saying great thing, you know, you really bigging them up. And yeah, they you know, I'd heard bits and pieces sort of around that time, and seeing them on stage, they hadn't grabbed me.
They weren't great that day, I didn't think. No.
And I think I remember you saying that at the time, and it was kind of a case of like, yeah, but you know, you need to see them indoors, you need to see them.
Yeah.
Anyway, in the run up to this new album, a few of the singles dropped beforehand, and they pricked up my ears. Like, I was listening. What I'd heard was really good, really solid. There's some breakdowns in the singles that just knocked me to the floor.
Yeah.
So the album dropped, and I think initially, like Dragenza, you jumped on it straight away. You know, I saw it on your turntable, like almost, you know, as soon as it had come out, it was there. Dipped into it. I've struggled with it, and two reasons. One, for me, just as you said, the vocals, I don't enjoy. And on the production, for me, is just there's a bit too much of a modern sheen, which is just an aesthetic that, you know, it kind of doesn't appeal to me much. But it's an awkward little bastard, this album. I'll say that much, because I could take any one track and play it and have an excellent time. Like, each one just hits you in the face, right? It just is holding nothing back. As an album, I find myself 2 songs in, and I want to change the channel. It sounds a little bit like a baby crying on an aeroplane after, right? So it's kind of like I can only take it in small chunks. So individual tracks, absolutely banging. As an album, I have to break it down a bit and just.
I agree. I mean, I just been thinking, like, the last couple of months of listening to new stuff, and the roadblock that I keep coming up against is I can't seem to find that many bands that, okay, so I'll listen to some stuff and I think good riffs, I like the production, or, you know, from a music side of things, and then I hear the lyrics and I just get turned off. Or I like the lyrics and I'm like, oh, the guitars, the riffs, they aren't doing anything for me. And I mean, am I missing something here? Because what would you say the ratio is at the minute between all the new stuff that's coming out? Is it more likely to be the kind of growling, screaming lyrics, or is there more stuff coming out that's like clean lyrics? Because it's incredibly difficult for me to latch onto stuff that's got growling lyrics. And it's like, for example, and I know you guys are going to completely disagree with me, but I just cannot get on board with stuff like Sang with Sugar Bob. It's like nails on a blackboard. I can't do it. I've tried. I think it's absolute pants for me anyway. I'm not saying they're a bad band. I just can't get on with it. And I don't know why. And it's like it feels like I'm missing out on something.
No, you're not. You're not. And bands like Sanguisugabog, I mean, we found this when we saw them live earlier. Was it earlier this year? I can't
Yeah, but it's all becoming a blur, isn't it? It's crazy.
Yeah,
but,
with Suffocation, and
we
were both kind of looking forward to them, and it just fell short, didn't it? And I swear it's because they didn't have a bass player. There was just no rhythm to it. It's just two guitars. It was just all chug, and there was no.
Yeah, it's not what.
Can you see where I'm coming from though? That it's
completely.
Yes,
it's like there seems to be there's not a lot of middle ground at the moment.
No, the heavy is getting heavier, but it's quite a it's not necessarily an organic heaviness, if you know what I mean. Like if you listen to
that's my point. I think that's what I'm trying to get at, is that it's like it's trying to turn the amps up to 11 kind of thing. It's like you listen, like as far as death metal goes, you listen to a band like Death or Morbid Angel, and it doesn't sound like they're doing it deliberately. They're just making music. Whereas here, it's like a lot of the stuff coming out it's almost as if there's some kind of like arms race going on that we don't know about. Like maybe that's akin to something like that you had in the late 80s and early 90s, where it was like, how many solos can you put into one song? How fast can you solo? How much can you whittle? Kind of thing, you know? How many broken arpeggios can you put into one solo? Now it's like, how sludgy can you make it sound? How high can you scream? It's, you know.
Yeah, I guess that's the way heavy music has always evolved, isn't it? It's like it got, punk got faster and it became thrash. Thrash got faster, it became speed metal. Everyone's up in the ante. I think what's interesting now is technology is lending a helping hand. So there's kind of a lot of production techniques that are bringing in intensity and stuff like that, and that's where it's a difficult bridge for me to cross. That one, I'm not quite, everything feels very, well, not everything, but
I would make the analogy that it's sometimes it feels like someone that can't cook, so to cover the fact that they can't cook or the food has no flavor, they just make it as spicy as hell.
Right.
It's like a really really mediocre curry, but what the only thing you remember from it is the fact that you almost died from the chili. It's like this with metal sometimes. You can't play for crap, but you'll just make it as sludgy and slow and doomy or heavy, or the vocals is screaming as you like, because maybe the vocals you've got absolutely nothing to say and there's no substance to them, but as long as you can't actually decipher, that's okay. It's like
that's it.
No, go on.
No, I was just going to say, so I was having this conversation actually earlier this week just about death metal lyrics and just the kind of aesthetic and the sound of it. Because I think it really depends if you're a lyrics person or not. Like it just so happens I was actually talking to my girlfriend about it, and she listens to a lot of folk music, stuff like that has its stories. The lyrics are important. Hearing what's inside those lyrics is important because it's the reason the song is there. It's giving information. It's telling a story. I've always been more of a, maybe it's because I play drums and stuff like that, more of a rhythm man. So I'm much more into the texture of the music and the rhythm of the music. So when I listen to stuff, death metal, and I love the Sanguisugabog album. I didn't enjoy them live, but the album I really, really like.
Yeah, same.
And I see the vocals as just part of this overall kind of, it's just a sound and a feeling and an atmosphere that's being created. And I feel the pressure of that atmosphere when I'm listening to some of this stuff. And that's where the appeal comes from. So I'm not necessarily tuning into the lyrics. They're kind of secondary, I guess, to what's going on. So I think it just depends where you come from.
Yeah, and it's like what you said about the production on this album, and I kind of get it because it feels like it's the type of production that is forced towards those massive breakdowns, like to really highlight the breakdowns, which I get, but I can understand why that would also be a bit grating, because it is very, very intense and it's very in your face. It never really relents. I bought the vinyl, but I'm not going to sit and listen to it with a glass of wine, and you know what I mean? It's not that kind of thing. So
as I said, if any one of these songs came on, like if you're in the club or you're in a bar and this music is coming out the PA, you're going to have the best time. I mean, I'm saying it didn't really click with me, but there's great stuff all the way across this album. But for me, they just work as individual tracks.
Small doses, doesn't it? Yeah. Voice of Reason. What did you think of this? Because I'm curious to know.
I'm sad to say that my feelings towards this band, I think, are very much how you feel about Converge.
Yeah, yeah.
I want to like them. I like what they do in principle and how they approach it. It just doesn't click with me.
Yeah, yeah. They're definitely one of those.
Yeah, it's annoying because obviously I love Converge and you just don't.
Yeah, and I've tried, and I've tried, and I've tried, and it drives me nuts.
Yeah, and it's I can't criticize them from a musical point of view because it's not engaging with me enough where I can even generate a criticism or not. It's weird. It's just something.
I'm going to steal that. That's great. I can't even comment on it. Can I actually use that when I grade students' work? Like, this is so bad I can't even comment on it.
As long as you credit him, But is that what you say about Converge? I because of how legendary they are, and there's been the odd moment which are like, and some of the stuff they do is really cool, but it is never penetrated, and I can 100% see why this band have that same effect.
Yeah, I mean, Converge. They've got I suppose there's a sort of underlying psychosis, I think, which I think it just connects with me, which says a lot probably. But I don't think Not Loose have that. It's more like a straight up hardcore band trying to spread their wings a lot more and trying to bring a lot of different things in. And maybe that's it. Maybe they just sound like they don't know what they want to be exactly. I mean, doesn't this album have a collaboration with Poppy?
Poppy's on it, yeah, which was quite a bold move.
Yeah, that was actually one of the highlights for me. That track really stood out as a highlight.
Suffocate, it's called, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, fair play. But I'm just thinking, hang on a minute. It just doesn't connect or click whatsoever, unfortunately. So yeah.
I know I've harped on about it before, but 2.5 years ago, whenever it was, when I saw them with Terror, and Terror as a hardcore band are one of those hardcore bands that always deliver live. They're in your face. It's like 35 minutes, all the stage diving, all the breakdowns, fast as you like, absolute just banger after banger. And Knock Loose came on after them, headline at the Ballroom. That was, the place was absolutely rammed, and they made Terror sound like fucking Hanson. It was just like, both me and Nikki walked away from that, and it was just like, fuck me, which is why I was so disappointed how flat it kind of felt at Bloodstock. So I don't know.
Yeah, but it's a difficult environment to play that sort of oppressively heavy music, at a festival. I think it needs to be contained to really hit. You know, it's like, shut the doors, there's no escape. You're just going to be suffocated by this monolithic noise.
Yeah, exactly. And that show was originally supposed to be at the Underworld, and it kept getting moved up because it kept selling out. So them in the Underworld, I think, would have been just unreal. So, but that's never going to happen. They're just, in the States now, they're playing to 5,000-6,000 people a night. So, it's kind of going onwards and upwards. But fair play to them. They've obviously crossed that line, having like Ant said, having Poppy on a track. It's good luck to them. I'm sure it'll. Well,
what I liked about that, actually, like hearing her voice on that track, is it came in as a bit of variety. It just broke. It's a very samey sound. That's a really awful way to put it, but it pricked my ears up. It was like something a little bit different, a little bit of flavor, just to use that cooking analogy again, a little bit of spice.
No, it worked. I think it's a decent track. Just one shout out though to the breakdown 2 minutes into The Calm That Keeps You Awake. I think it's like track 8. I think just fucking huge. Just absolutely fucking massive. And that's what I mean by the production being really forced towards that part of the album. So, but it just, on the big hit at home, it just sounded unreal. So yeah, right. Let's have a change of tune then. Unleash the Archers. Phantoma.
Pantomime.
Probably.
Phantoma, yeah, that. Canadian, massively over the top, 80s inspired fucking power metal. And
Isn't it?
I don't know, I might be doing it a bit of a disjustice, but
No, that's about right.
pretty much it, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. This is the thing. Just like every other metal subgenre, I don't enthuse about it, but I'm a bit picky with the bands that I end up really loving. And power metal, it's overkill, isn't it? It's ridiculous and
Yeah.
just I just want to say, for God's sake, you're too cheerful. Get miserable, you bastards, most of the time. But when a band again do something a little bit different, they take a different approach, I'll take an interest. And maybe it's because they're not European, possibly. But yeah, obviously Canadian band, they just got a little bit more, I suppose, rock to them, just to kind of ground them, I suppose. Just
More rock, less pomp.
Yeah, basically. They've still got that sort of epicness that power metal brings, but it's a lot more grounded, I think.
Yeah.
And I think this album kind of sums all that up very well. I don't want to dwell on the AI stuff. I've made it clear that my feelings about AI I'm pretty opposed to it. But it's about AI. I think how they've approached their use of AI is fairly conscientious. So, okay, cool, fair play. And I think because they started it a couple of years ago, before the AI thing really went mad on the internet, it's kind of, it's just how it turned out. I mean, going forward, they probably wouldn't do something in the same way. But yeah, I was a bit cautious about it just because of that. But first couple of listens, yeah, it's all right. It's all right. It's solid. There's a few hooks there, amongst other things. But I think on that third and fourth listen, it really opened up. Like, oh, there's a lot of hooks here. There's a lot of choruses here. The 80s influence is really strong. This doesn't really feel like a power metal album a lot of the time. I think here and there, certainly, but it just feels like a straight up classic heavy metal record, I think, really.
Yeah. You talk about the 80s influence. There's a track, I think, what's it? Give It Up or Give It All.
Yes.
If you told me that was by Roxette or Starship, I wouldn't have batted an eyelid. If you told me that came out in 1987, I wouldn't have batted an eyelid.
Look, if you put that song on Radio 2 in the daytime, you will have middle-aged women calling up about it.
Can we put that to the test?
I don't know. I don't think Ken Bruce is doing things anymore at that point. But no, it's probably one of the most power ballads I've heard in many a year.
It's fucking brilliant. That's what it
is. It is. And I'll tell you, it took me a while to acclimate to this album, because I kind of spent the week listening to, like, we'll probably talk about it a bit later, but Thou have dropped a record, and I'd been deep into the pre-release of the new Gert album. So, I was kind of encompassed in all this sludge and grime. And then I put this on. It's a completely different beast. But once I got used to it, I found myself thinking about, I think the thing about power metal, or metal of this type, is it's so fucking life affirming. It just soars. It just hits these melodies, and just the way it's produced, the way it's arranged, the way it's all put together. It just gives you that lift in your heart. That's as cheesy as that sounds. That's what it does.
And it does that without being naff. Like Ant said, it's not the problem with power metal, like bands like, I don't know, Freedom Call and Rhapsody and that. It's just a bit much. Whereas this is just right. The ingredient levels are just right.
This is it. If I take one of the other singles, Ghosts in the Mist, that and the title track, you've got this sort of underpinning synthesizer kind of loop going on. but that opening Ghost in the Mist riff, that's a new metal riff, a very straightforward new metal riff that then sort of moves on almost onto this sort of slightly metalcore kind of breakdown. And then you get a really good chorus. It's just a good blend of things going on.
Oh, there's so much going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's one, I can't remember the track title, but there's one track that's got like death metal vocals that kick in, like as a kind of backing behind it. Like the song that, which one is it?
Seeking Vengeance. I think that's the penultimate track.
Right. Yeah, I think it's earlier than that. I think it's earlier, but that's the thing. And then you've got this big song, like the song I mentioned before, that kind of Give It All or Give It Up or Give It All. The track that comes after that has got a heavy riff in it, you know, so they're really taking you on a journey.
They do it, I mean, previously, because and you've been on about this band for a while, and previously they haven't really kind of clicked all that much, and this one didn't at first. I was like, it's a bit naff, and I do like naff. We all know that. I like it really. But mowing the lawn with Raw Republic in my ear earlier on. But it did the songs are that strong that's when it starts to come together, when you start to get into the songs, and that's when it makes more sense. You've got enough Bon Jovi in the mix for it to kind of to really hit home.
But that's it. I mean, I think this is a good example. Like I say, it's a grounded album. It's not massively power metal or massively this or anything. It's quite, in some ways, it's quite straightforward. And unless the songs are overwhelmingly good right from the start, then you do need to be a bit patient, because first couple of listens it's like, well, it's all right, it's fine, it's good, and you need to be patient with it because that's the only way. But it's those choruses that you think, well, they hook you in, and this has, and it's certainly one of my favourites of the year.
Cool. I think also the other thing.
Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say the other thing with any sort of power metal or fantasy metal of any kind, you have to just give yourself over to it as well.
Yeah,
you have to just completely walk through that door and just enter that
grab
realm.
Your sword.
Yeah, that's why it took me a while. It's like I'd been listening to other stuff, you know, very gritty kind of real stuff. So it took me a few plays, but it's like, do you know what? I'm going there, and off I went questing.
Yeah, well, I got, like I said, a heavy D&D thing going online, so
what will be interesting is how well they go down at Bloodstock, because they're on the main stage, you know, a few bands up on the bill, so it'll be one of those. They'll either have a crowd out of curiosity, or everyone will fuck off and get chips, kind of thing. So it'll be
this is what I say, that you've got to, I think sometimes you've got to play the power ballad, because you want to hook people in, because that will make people take notice. They're not just another metal band. They need the sun, I think, really. If you don't want to be pissing rain, do people sort of fleeing. So hopefully it will come right for them. But like I said, they're the kind of band who I know if more norms gave them the kind of shot, they'd find a lot to enjoy.
Norms. We'll watch the space on that one, because they could do something. Right, seems been mentioned thou. Let's go again, a completely different direction. Last week released Umbilical. I've heard of this band, but I've never listened to them. So this was an interesting one. What do we think of this? Because for me, it's just it's just evil, just grim, filthy, nasty, evil, and I like that.
Yeah, I think it like in a similar way to I mean, it doesn't sound similar, but just to compare it to Knock Loose, because I mentioned that's kind of, you know, it's kind of has one tone that goes all the way through it. Well, they're a band that kind of, you know, they just have one gear, which is somewhere around, I don't know, the gates of hell being opened up, and just ooze and demons and evil, malevolent kind of forces coming out, and it's just grim and gritty and grimy. And as you said, I love all that too. You know, I've said it before on this podcast, but sometimes you listen to a band and you just need to take a shower afterwards. And that's kind of where thou sit for me. An interesting band though. You know, previously they've done collaborations with Emma Ruth Rundle, which is, you would not put those two together. You know, if you listen to them individually. They've done an entire Nirvana covers album, which
I've
is
had listened to that. That's really interesting.
yeah, which is a really inspired set of covers. So I respect them as a band. You know, they do interesting things, but they also make really, really fucking dense, heavy music, which I like a lot. So I haven't given this too many spins. You know, I've sat with it for a while, but what I've heard, I really like. It's right up my street.
You say about the opening of the gates of hell. That's kind of what I got from it as well. It is like it sounds like Satan himself welcoming you to hell. It's just that it hits you like right down there, doesn't it? It's just gut wrenchingly heavy. And
I mean, maybe that's you know, as I was saying, I was thinking maybe it's a bad analogy because it's nothing kind of, it's not like, you know, fantasy world. This is more like someone opening up their psyche and just the worst fucking neurosis and problems and depression and all that shitty stuff that we have to deal with just comes crawling out to get you.
Have you read their Wikipedia thing?
No, I haven't. No.
Though often lumped in with New Orleans sludge bands like I Hate God and Crowbar, Val shares a more spiritual kinship with 90s proto-grunge bands like Nirvana, Alice in Chains, and Soundgarden. What?
Yes. Yeah. This is it. This, you know, listening to this album is kind of why I picked up on them previously, because again, not my thing. I'm not a sludgy person. I have no interest in Crowbar or I Hate God or anything like that. But they've got a bit of a sort of alternative rock vibe to them. And, you know, there's times on this where there's a bit of a bad Motorfinger sort of thing going on, I think. It's just got that different level.
That's a great shout.
Is it in the bass guitar though? Because the one thing that cuts through for me is it's got a real rumbling bass through it, which you can, and that's unusual to hear that in this kind of sludgy and, you know, densely heavy stuff. You don't normally hear it because it's like a wall of sound, but you can hear the bass rumbling through it, which does sort of shift the dynamic a little bit.
Have you ever heard that? It's out there on the internet somewhere, but someone's recorded like a planet, like they've somehow I don't know, they've worked out or they've picked up the frequency which this planet is rumbling at. It's like literally a recording of the universe, and it sounds as doom as fuck. I promise you, like Google it, look for it, you find it. It's out there. I think it's legit. Like I think it's real. But that it kind of has that vibe permeating through this entire album.
Yeah, I do want to say, because one of the things that sort of pulled me into the last, actually it was 2020, the last album. I thought it was 2021, but there you go. Christ,
time flies.
Been mad 4 years. I think they did a bunch of songs in the sessions with Emma Ruth Rundle for the last album, and one of the things they did was a cover of Hollywood by the Cranberries, which is phenomenal. It works so well. I mean, it's heavy and dark and very Val, and of course with her vocals, it fits. But it's I'm annoyed because I completely forgot about it when we did our countdown of metal, non-metal songs a while ago. But it 90s alternative, that sort of darkness that it brings with it. So I think that's a really good example of how they do and what they do that sets them apart from other similar bands.
That's really. I'm gonna have to have a listen to that because that's
off their third album, the Cranberries. That's not off the big two. That's from the.
No, I do know the song. So it's and the wife will as well. So it's I'll play it to her later and we'll see if she recognizes it. But they're a band I definitely want to listen to more of. That, you know, what I've heard on this album, I fucking loved it, and I definitely need to hear more. That Nirvana covers album is just so well done, and it's only at certain points that you actually recognize the songs as Nirvana songs. You know, they've completely bastardized that stuff, and it's really, really well done. So this will be a bit of a watch this space, I think, with this band. I'll be diving in.
I'm surprised. I thought you liked them. I thought you listened to them previously.
never. I've seen the album covers. I've heard of the band. They've come across, but I've never listened to them. And yeah, you're right. It is up my street, so it's odd. So, but you know, that's why we do this, isn't it? It's shit like that. Something new and, well, not shiny, but new and grubby, filthy and grimy. A bit less filthy and grimy then. This is one that I've only this week have I actually listened to it properly. And that's Flamekeeper, self-titled. I when it came out on the 10th of May, I gave it a very quick listen, and I did that whole sort of 30 seconds of listen to it, and nah, it's not for me. And I switched it off again. And then, and when you brought it up, I thought, I'll have another listen to it. And fuck me, did I enjoy it. Just, I can't even begin to describe it, but I don't know, maybe one of you. It's fucking great fun.
For me, this is basically this year's Megaton Sword album.
Yes.
It's you know, that sort of. I mean, it's a one-man project. Another one.
Yeah, we like that.
But it's an Italian based in Sweden. So there's a slight off kilter there, but based on the sound, the kind of Celtic sound rather, of a couple of these tracks, I do wonder if there's any Irish kind of heritage or Gaelic or whatever. But it's just got that sort of pompous kind of Man of War-ish,
triumphant
vibe to it. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, I can't. I'm struggling to describe it.
I tell you what I thought of. So when the first track played, there's something about this kind of, it's got these big drums in it, like these big kettle drums. And I was thinking, what do they remind me of? And it's Bathory, right? So I was thinking, so the first band that came into my mind was kind of like mid-era Bathory. But then as it goes on, it's like it's got this real sort of upbeat, energetic, it's quite a jaunty sounding album. And I decided it sounds like Bathory if they swapped Hawthorne for Andrew WK.
Oh, I'd love to hear that.
And it's so, to my ears, it sounds like if Andrew WK made a Viking metal album, it would sound like this. It's like it's kind of this blackened Viking metal, but in a really good mood.
Someone give this to Flamekeeper and tell them to put it on a t-shirt. If Bathory were fronted by Andrew WK.
Yeah, I know he retweets sort of good reviews. So
fucking hell. Look, what the bit that I think it's the second track. I am the Flamekeeper. I am the Flamekeeper. It just that's when it clicked. It was like, I'm into this. I've bought in now. I'll listen to the rest of the album, and it's fucking great fun from start to finish.
I love the guitar sound of this album.
It's weird. It's a weird production.
There's a fullness to it, but also a savagery that again is off kilter with what they're trying to do. But it's sharp, and again it's kind of why it does remind me of Megaton Sword last year as well.
You know what? I couldn't put my finger on it, but that makes sense. Megaton Sword. That does make. It's got that same awkwardness.
Yeah. So. Yeah, it's not an immediate one. People do need to, I think, work at it, but it's just got a distinctive vibe to it, which sets it apart from other stuff.
It absolutely is. It's unique. There's, it's kind of sounds like some stuff, but you can't quite place it. It's doing its own thing. So for that, I've got all the admiration in the world for it.
Yeah, it's fucking quality. Padre, have you listened to it? Because I'd love to know what you thought of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the way it's clever is that they've managed to come up with something completely derivative that you guys think is original. Like, I think it's absolute shite. I would like to take it out into the desert with no water and leave it there to die. I just thought it was boring.
No one said it was original. It's just odd.
It's just, I don't even think it's odd. I just think it's wank. I think this is what happens when you've got, if what you're saying is true, it's like this is a one person thing. This is why you have bandmates to say, no, that's shit. Let's change it. It's like otherwise it's an ego trip. Just look, if you like it, great. Not for me. boring.
I
Listen
would
to it
actually
twice.
just on that point about it being a one-man project. I would like to hear this with a bigger production. Actually, talk about the production. It sounds to me like it's kind of all done like in the box. So I'd imagine he's done this at home in his home studio.
Yeah.
You know, triggering samples using kind of virtual orchestras and things like that. But I, you know, about halfway through, I was thinking I would love to hear something like this, but done on a grand scale.
Yeah.
Then I think you'd really be talking about something.
Strings and fucking, or you know, some of that
Yeah,
going
yeah,
on.
yeah.
But yeah. Right.
So if you had a bigger budget, I think you've got something quite stupendous on your hands. But you know, it's still got its tongue in its cheek, and I just enjoy that about it.
Well, if there's one thing we can hold true is that we don't always all agree on the same thing. So there you go. Let's talk about Jamie Jaster. Obviously, everybody knows him as the front man from Hatebreed, and you know, you go back Headbangers Ball, and he has his fingers in so many different pies. Gets quite a lot of stick, Jamie Jaster, which I've always found really weird. But he's done this thrash album, and it's called And Jaster for All. The album cover is a take on Justice for All, which some might find a bit awkward, but I quite like it. And a bit like Bat, this is Jamie Jaster living out his thrash metal dreams. You know, Scott Ian's on there, Chuck Billy's on there, you've got Phil Demmel on there. It's and if you take it with a pinch of salt and take it what it's supposed to be, it's like 35 minutes or whatever it is of just thrash anthems. And I think it's fucking great.
You don't need to take
like thrash.
It doesn't need a pinch of anything. If you need to, if this is an album that you need to take with a pinch of salt, piss off, listen to something else. Okay, go and listen to Flame Creeper. Okay, because that needs all the
Flame
salt
Bearer.
in the world. Flame Barrel. Exactly. I don't even know the fucking name. It's so derivative. Like, so yeah. I listened to. I've been listening to this album on and off, and it's just. He's still got. There's some still like hardcore stuff going on in there.
Yeah,
There's
definitely.
some really good.
Definitely.
There's some. What I like about it is in every single song there's a riff that you can kind of sense it's coming, and then you get it, and it's like, yes, that's great. And then you've got the thrash stuff around it. So definitely worth listening to. Don't really care that he's kind of memorialized the Justice for All cover and he's called it And Justice for All. I mean, he's been around enough. I think he's got enough credit that he can get away with it. He's entitled to it. He's been a staple of the metal scene, whether you like hardcore or not. The amount of time, see this thing, I kind of always lump Hatebreed in with like Biohazard in terms of my own personal experience, because I've seen them quite a few times. They've always popped up at gigs that I've been to or festivals, and I've always watched them live, and they're cool. Without really ever knowing much about them. So, but I listened to this, and then I went back and I started listening to the Hatebreed back catalogue. So, I would definitely recommend this. I think it's a great album. Some really good riffs on there. Like you said, it's got a lot of pedigree to it because of the people that he's got guesting on it.
Yeah.
And you know, this is the thing: if people like that are going to guest on his album, then that just shows you how much collateral that guy has got in the metal fraternity. So you're like, if he's done a side project like this and it's his vanity project, he can be as vain as all he likes. He's got enough credit in my book to do it. He's come up with a good album. It's definitely go in the mix. Go and listen to it. It's great.
There you go, the ultimate badge of honor compared to the previous album. What did you think about it?
I thought it was effortlessly good.
Yeah, that's a good shout.
It's really strong. So there's a phrase that comes to mind. So I would say Jaster is what me and my old friends would call hearing Jimmy on this album, right? So years ago, that's a reference to the film White Men Can't Jump. Okay, and there's a scene in that Wesley Snipes, Woody Harrelson are driving along talking about Jimi Hendrix, and Wesley Snipes makes the point that Woody Harrelson can listen to Jimmy, but he's not hearing Jimmy. Okay, as a white man, how can he possibly, connect with Jimi Hendrix? So me and my mates, shout out to my mate Russ, because me and him use it the most, but it became our go-to phrase. Like if we heard or experienced anything that was just so effortlessly cool, that was so just kind of intrinsically connected in its very DNA to the thing it was trying to do, we would say, oh man, they're hearing Jimmy. And that's what came to mind when I put this album on. You know, I'm like 2, 3, 4 tracks into it, and I'm like, this is just effortlessly cool. This is someone that just understands metal, feels it in their beating heart. And it comes across in every moment of this album. He just understands it. He just gets it, just knows what he wants, what we want. And it just all falls into place with what seemingly no effort at all. It's great.
Yeah. I think it's interesting you say that, because I think my thoughts at the moment are that it's fine. It's solid. And I think more listeners will probably maybe elevate that above that. What I like about it is it feels like he's having fun.
Yeah.
Getting all these different people in and actually just sort of just getting out there and doing a thrash album. I think because there's no overall cohesive band, it doesn't quite click as a project in that regard, which is why maybe at the moment it feels just like a solid record as opposed to anything more. But I think because of the positive vibes and the enthusiasm, it still stands out as a positive experience compared to an album released by another thrash legend this month that just sounds tired and kind of boring and just with no ideas whatsoever. So we'll just focus on Jasta instead, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense. Who are you talking about? I'm
Kerry King.
Oh, Kerry King, of course, yes. Kerry King. Yeah. Yeah, well, it stands to reason that we're not talking about that album. So my very quick opinion on it is it sounds like it's from the cutting room floor of Slayer sessions, and that's it. None of these songs were good enough for Slayer, and it's what's left. That's what I got from that album. So
right, I've heard very little. I haven't given it a full play. I've heard the singles. I don't know. It's funny, isn't it? I'm nervous about listening to it because I just, I think it's gonna live up to my expectations, which aren't high.
It's lyrically, it's very Old Man Yells at Clouds.
Right, and who saw that coming?
I think it's like I was never there for this. This has happened twice. This is like 2 friends of mine. But I remember 1998. One of the guys that I met at Ozfest 98, who came up on the bus the morning of or whatever. He was like, he remember he turned up and I was like, "Oh, how was the journey up?" He was like, "Oh man, I was sat next to this guy that just wouldn't let it lie that Kerry King was shit." Like he just spent the entire bus journey slagging off Kerry King. And then the same thing happened again at WAC in 2006 with some of the people that me and Dragenza met. We were like, "How was the flight?" He goes, "I was next to someone that just wouldn't let up on Kerry King." And I think he does attract a lot of criticism for his guitar playing.
Yeah.
And it's not all out of bounds, it's not all unwarranted. I did listen to some of it, and you're right, this is like the stuff that he must have gone in and like push play, and like Tom and Jeff were like, no, get out. Go back and think about go away and think about what you've just done. So yeah, just or like just imagine like Tom just writing on it, or even for you.
Oh, I mean, look, to be fair, I have heard people round and about saying, look, it's not as bad as you think it is and stuff like that. So I will get round to it. I will get round to it, but yeah, I'm putting it off.
Yeah, let's leave that one there. Let's do fucking SAIDAN, another one of these bands.
I'm saying SAIDAN.
Yeah, it's got a Japanesey kind of feel. I'm kind of going
it's probably SAIDAN actually, but I don't care.
Yeah. Visual Kill, the blossoming of psychotic depravity. Of course, just rolls off the tongue. I weirdly I know this band and I know the previous album, but the two things didn't click when this was brought up amongst us. And I listened to it, and you know what? Almost straight away, it blew me away a little bit. It's absolutely fucking bonkers black metal, but it's suitably epic as well. And it's from fucking Nashville.
Well, that was the first hurdle I had to get over. I was like, "What?
No.
This is?" And I'm trying to look at the liner notes or whatever, find out a little bit more about the band. The aesthetic is very kind of Japanese.
Yep.
And then you read, "Oh, right, they're from Nashville." Fucking hell! What corner of Nashville are they from?
A very dark corner.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's not, grim black metal, is it? It's not like that. It is quite avant-garde and over the top. And
I think we're in a very strange place at the moment, but I like it. I like this strange place because we've got this particular album, but we also had obviously the Hexablad album last month.
Yeah.
And also Beholder, which I think I need to revisit actually, because it was
Very
a bit
good
of a
album.
slow grower for me. Where we're listening to these black, they are black metal albums. They sound like black metal. They've got that harshness, that atmosphere. But in this instance, it's one of the catchiest albums I've heard this year.
Yeah.
And this seems to be a thing in North America. Because I think Beholder are Canadian, so I don't want to say it's just Americans, where they're saying, well, tell you what, we can't be true cult. We can't be like the Norwegians, and we're American, where we're all supposed to be positive and big and upbeat. That's part of our capitalist souls. So let's do catchy black metal, and it's bloody fantastic.
Yeah.
I love it. It really is. I mean, there's choruses here and melodies and whatnot, but even stuff like Switchblade Paradise, where it just slows down for the bridge, and it sounds like something that The Cure would have done.
I've got that.
Yeah.
The same thing in my. It just goes pure post-punk, and it just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, but it still works.
It works.
It goes into it. And look, I'll be honest, I've still got to listen to this album a lot more because there's a lot going on, lots of melodies, lots of tunes. But it's just I just loved it, just enjoyed it so much. And yeah, I mean, is this it? Is this the turning point where black metal becomes, I suppose, what it could have always been? Or
Black metal shouldn't put a smile on your face like this does.
Yeah, it's an awkward one, isn't it?
The song "Sick Abducted Purity," the guitar solo in it is just pure over the top 80s fucking cock rock kind of, but it all works. It shouldn't, but it really does. It's this fucking big melting pot, and it just comes out, and it's just got this wonderful album. It's fucking brilliant.
Yeah, I wonder if that, if that is a product of the fact that we're now in an age where there's so much music to listen to. So everybody's influences are so much wider than what they might have been, when they did just live in a little village in Norway. You kind of only had what was there. Whereas now everyone's got the internet, and they're listening to multiple genres of metal, and it's all going into the melting pot. So yeah, you get black metal with glam rock guitar solos.
Don't be surprised if they're listening to Taylor Swift.
There was a movement in the 90s and the early 2000s. For example, if you look at, there's the book that came out after the Berlin Wall came down by Fukuyama, The End of History. The base, society as we know it is going to be completely different now. Now we don't have two world power blocks. Now, and then you look at other branches of in terms of education. Now we're post method, we're post pedagogy. That doesn't exist anymore. Everything's eclectic. It's like this now. It's like we're post metal. There are no subgenres. They don't exist. They only exist in our minds. So we're no longer can be shackled by them. And that's if that is what's happening. If that's the place where we're going to end up in, then good, because one of the things that's been the curse of this podcast has been the amount of lunacy that we've been exposed to with these fucking subgenres. Can we just do away with it? Everything's metal, right? That's just enough, because it's too much. And yes, if we're now getting to the point where our black metal band is doing 80s cock rock solos, then power to it. If this is the direction we're going to go in, great.
Let's march.
And also,
forward.
I was just thinking as well, if they really, Tennessee, Nashville's in Tennessee in the South, it's below the Mason-Dixon line. God knows what happens if they went all the way and started burning churches in that area.
Can you imagine that?
They probably at first everyone would be like, no, it's the Klan. Hang on a minute,
they have got the full black metal aesthetic as well.
White like Republican voters in the Bible Belt, they open their curtains and there's an inverted cross burning on their lawn.
Well, this is the thing. This is the thing. Leave the black churches alone. Leave their churches, absolutely, and just focus on the West Brother Baptist Church.
Yeah, that's a good shout. Do some good. Yeah. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens with this band. I don't know if they play live or anything like that, because I watched the video. I think the video was for Sick Abducted Purity. It might not have been. I can't remember, but they have got the full black metal aesthetic, the corpse paint, all of that. Not quite as grim as the Norwegian stuff. It's a little bit more pantomimey, but it'd be interesting to see if they do anything with that, if they do play live. I don't know enough about them to kind of guess, but yeah, they're a band to watch, and I'm with you. I just need to listen to the album a few more times and for it to really kind of hit home. But for a black metal album to hit that quickly, and for you to just like be almost laughing at it,
and like I say, twice in as many months.
Yeah,
I'm like, what the hell is going on? But more of it, please.
Posy black metal. It's like H2O doing black metal or something.
Hang on, you've just created another subgenre. You've stopped that. We're abolishing those.
Apparently so. I tell you what we'll do now, because it went so well last month. Beans Oddballs, because I'm sure you've got something to offer.
Oh, bloody hell. Well, there's always some weird shit out there, isn't there? I've got a few that I'll mention. I'll rattle through them. We won't spend much time with this, but there is one pretty big release that I wanted to cover. And ordinarily we'd probably be talking about this album anyway. But it just so happens what they've put out is a little bit left to center. So I wanted to mention Uncle Acid and the Deadbeats, because anyone that has a history with them will recognize them as a kind of a fuzzy sort of stoner band, that sits somewhere alongside Sir Admiral Cloudsley Shovel and other kind of Desert Fest fodder and things like that. But this month they came out with Nel Aura Blue, which translates as the Blue Hour. And it's a complete curveball. So what they've done is they've written a soundtrack to a film that doesn't exist. So but it's rooted in this like it's kind of Italian style thriller, like 1970s thriller. And they've done a pretty convincing job. So the main guy, Kevin Stars, has kind of written an entire narrative to this film. So the music sort of dips in and out of that, and they use bits of spoken word on there, long instrumental passages, just to tell this story. And it's not going to sit next to the heavy metal in your album collection. This is going to sit next to your Morricone albums, or your Badalamenti albums. It's odd, but it's really, really good. So I want to put that one up front to say, it's a quality listen.
I want to talk about this, because I think I might have mentioned this last time, actually, although it's worth pointing out there's a lot of artists doing this sort of fake movie soundtrack thing out there, and they're mainly they're sort of the underground of the synthwave genres, the witchy sort of synth dark. There's all sorts of, again, solo projects, not many listeners on Spotify. There's a lot of it out there. I think there's an artist called Terratron who got like 3 albums from the Thames, but again, just like a zombie movie, a witch movie, that kind of thing. It's that kind of approach. So it's not a new thing, but so when I saw the cover, I thought, oh yeah, sort of fake. It's a Giallo movie, isn't it? I mean, it could be Argento,
absolutely,
could be Fulci, anything like that. Interesting. I listened because it's a long album. It's like 20 tracks, isn't it? Over an hour and a half.
It's an 80-minute runtime.
Yeah. Okay. Right. And I listened. I thought, it could be metal, it could be the other stuff I like. And I'll be honest, I kind of did drop out after about 5 tracks because it just wasn't clicking, sadly. But I was in, I think a few days later, I popped into the record shop in Margate, Some Nice Things that we've picked up. And Angus was actually in there for the first time in ages. So,
shout out to Angus.
And flipping through the news section, which is what I do once a month now, listening to what's on the speakers. I'm thinking, oh, I like that, because it's a bit synthy and weird. And what's this? Oh, it's the new Uncle Acid. Oh, for fuck's sake. Really? I'm gonna have to listen to it in full now, aren't I? And he did say, "Oh, yeah, it's a bit different," and blah blah, etc. So, but I think what I've got to do is listen to it as a synthwave album, and not as a rock album or a metal album, and maybe even stick it on whilst I'm doing my day job, because that's the only time I don't really listen to metals on purpose. I listen to the synthy stuff and whatnot. I listen to a hell of a lot of John Carpenter and John Harrison and whatnot when I'm working, because it's intense and dark, but it's also, that doesn't interrupt me when I'm doing my spreadsheets. So I think I need to take that approach with this particular album. So yeah, it's an interesting one. But
yeah. And I think the reason I bring it up as an oddball as such is just because it's such a departure to what we're used to hearing from Uncle Acid. And like there are moments in there where you recognize them as them, but overall they've done a really convincing job of creating this authentic sounding 70s film noir soundtrack. So that was, I wanted to give that a shout out. But then we go from the sublime to the ridiculous, and I wanted to very, very briefly talk about 6 Feet Under. And I'm not going to give them any more airtime than they deserve, because they're an odd band. I cannot get my head around how they're still making albums. And if anyone heard their 2020 release, I can't even remember what it's called, but it's a fucking car crash.
Absolute abomination. They're one of the worst things I've ever heard.
Anyway, so they've put out a new album this month, Killing for Revenge, which is, it is what it is. I haven't given it much time, but tacked onto the end of this album, there is something that is worth tuning into, and it's a cover of Hair of the Dog by Nazareth. Okay. So if anyone knows the track, Dan McGafferty was the singer on that track, and he's got fantastic voice. And they've actually done a really, musically, a really faithful cover of Hair of the Dog by Nazareth, complete with a cowbell intro. It's got this groovy 70s vibe to it. But then the vocal is Chris Barnes just doing fucking Chris Barnes over the top, heaving out the lyrics. And it's so ridiculous that it's actually really enjoyable. So that's all I'm going to say. Track it down and listen to it, because it's
that might be one. That might be a stretch too far, that one.
Well, okay. And then equally, something else just flitting around, and I came across something that really kind of, I don't know, caught my attention because it just sounded so fucking bizarre. Tuned into it, and musically it is so fucking bizarre. So there's again, it's another one-man project called Fire at the Plantation House. Okay, and they put out an album called Southampton Insurrection. So this is a one-man technical death metal album by a guy called John Angel.
It's not Dave Angel.
Oh, no. I mean, I don't know whatever happened to him, but yeah, John Angel's still around, and he's making albums about 19th century slave uprisings, which is the theme of this album. So it's like a one-man project, young guy. He so stylistically, he's tried to bring in some influences that are in keeping with that, the Nat Turner, the slave uprising. So there's bluegrass on there, there's neo soul in there, there's sacred choir music in there. On paper, it should kind of work in the same way that like Zeal and Ardor, what they come up with. But instead it just comes, it sounds like this deranged lost Frank Zappa album, which is trying to make a really sort of compelling, serious point, but it's a mess. But it's so fucking bonkers. The concept, the music, none of it tallies, and it's worth listening to just to try and get your head around it. So that's another oddball. I'll stick that one out there. And just one more from me, just a very, very brief shout out, because we've just gone into Pride Month. So I wanted to give a shout out to the best grindcore black metal album that I've heard this month, and that's Gaylord, who have just dropped Baseball Bats and Butterfly Knives, which is absolutely fucking fantastic. And if the name puts you off because it's not kind of the aesthetic of heavy metal, I implore you to just dial them up, listen to Gaylord. There's songs on there like Where Slaughtered Children Weep Ghost Tears on Bullet Shredded Corpses.
Fuck's sake.
That's all I'm going to say. So that's what I came up with this time round. They're my oddballs. Avoid them at all costs, or tune in if you're curious.
Fair enough. Yeah. All right. Okay. Right. We'll just touch on a couple of albums that I want to get into before we do the major release for the month. HELLBUTCHER, self-titled debut album from him. Obviously Niflheim broke up a couple of years ago, and this is his first kind of foray into solo stuff, and it is black and speed. You think Hell Ripper but Swedish, if you can kind of, if that makes sense. Goes along a million miles an hour. It's pure Satan, pure evil, got the best fucking album artwork of the year, and it's fucking great fun, and I absolutely love it.
Why isn't there a butcher's called HELLBUTCHER?
Well, he might have a shop for all we know.
See, this is what I want to like. Can you just imagine what that would look like? If you had a heavy metal themed butchers,
It would be bloody.
like black walls, like piped in screams coming from the back. Like you open the door, like you don't have a bell, right? Like in old school shops, you have like the intro to Rain and Blood, dum dum dum, like that.
Just on a loop.
And, yeah, and there's like there's blood coming down the walls. And then like the butcher comes out.
That's most butchers,
like,
to be fair.
Yeah, like looking like he's just killed someone, but he's like the nicest guy you've ever met. He goes, and it's like, and also a place where oxtail doesn't cost a lot because for some reason it's gone up in price because of all those bloody TV chefs.
I can see the menu now. It'd be black metal and black pudding.
The trouble is, any butcher that looks like a heavy metal butcher and Cannibal Corpse, it's going to break a few health and safety regulations,
hygiene and all that, environmental health. Yeah,
and apparently E. coli is now going rampant across the country, and they don't know where it's coming from. So
I think they're touring with Sanguisugabug, aren't they?
Yeah, that's that is you take your life into your hands every time you eat for the next week, aren't we?
But all that aside, it's a thoroughly enjoyable speed metal album. I think it's really fucking good fun. And like I say, the artwork and his logo is so fucking cool that as a metal fan, you can't help but like it.
It's a 50-50 toss up, isn't it, for like album art of the month? I think you've got that on one side, and then you've got HELLBUTCHER on the other. Both fantastic albums, both fantastic album covers.
Yeah, really, really good fun. So weirdly, I reached out to him to see if he wants to come on the podcast, but oddly, I haven't had a reply. But there you go. And the other one I want to quickly touch on is Teenage Rebel by Nestor. Now we had this as an advance a fair few weeks ago, and I never listened to it, and I really regret that because since this has come out, this is just fucking wicked fun. The album cover is brilliant. The two teenagers sat looking at the poster of the band on the wall. This could be 80s horror movie, kind of soundtrack stuff. It's so ridiculously 80s and over the top. Fucking, it's all the Europe. It's Def Leppard. It's the full works. But I love it. It's brilliant.
I haven't listened to it because it's one of the it's one of the 276 albums that you lot are recommending today on WhatsApp, and it's getting ridiculous, quite frankly.
It's gone up to 277 now.
Oh bloody hell! It sounds like this is if we're on the theme of earlier, this year's Skinheart.
You know what? It's like that, and how Reckless Love sounded before they went synthy.
Oh dear!
So it is very deep rooted in the 80s, but the band formed in 89 and then did nothing for 20 odd years, and now they've released 2 albums in the last sort of 5 or 6 years. So it's a weird kind of setup on the go, but they formed in 1989 and they are still in 1989, and for that I love it. It's proper just fist pumping stuff, really good fun. It's
just a good mood, like pressed on wax. That's
exactly that.
It's we've got this thing going on at the moment with kind of post Stranger Things, where that 80s aesthetic is huge, and people are just tapped straight back into it, and it very much sits in that place. It's excellent. I've not listened to it much because it's kind of been a recent one where everyone's just it suddenly popped up at the end of the month, and people are like, oh, hang on, this has gone unchecked, and we've all dialed into it and just had the best time.
Yeah, it's really good fun. Yeah, the Stranger Things aesthetic, you're right. the album artwork is very much like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, it's really cool. So like you said, it's only been a recent thing, so I need to listen to it more. But yeah, Skin Her, Reckless Love, those type of bands, it's got that in droves, and it's
Yeah, I'm
great.
going to give a shout out to Nige, because I think it just sent him down a wormhole where he pulled out every cheesy record that he's got in his record collection, and just had a day where he was just absolutely putting the volume on some cheese.
I just see people talking about Survivor and Journey. I'm thinking, hang on a minute, what's going on? I'm not sure I can allow this.
There's no veto on it yet. It can carry on as far as I'm concerned. So yeah. Well, just before we do the I suppose the main big release of the month, Bean, you went to a couple of gigs in May. The rest of them have been 20. But the only one I really want to touch on mainly is actually, before we do that, you went to Black Crows, didn't you? And Jimmy Page was wandering around in the crowd. So I read on.
Apparently so. I didn't see him in the crowd. I did see him. So yeah, great gig, big production, kind of Black Crows doing what they do, and it was my first time seeing them. So I was having a great time. But towards the end of the gig, I'm just kind of looking about, and I could see Jimmy Page, like his silhouette just in the or his profile, I should say, just behind the amp side of the stage looking in. And I have to say, there's something fucking magical about seeing Jimmy Page. I know, okay, it's just a guy or whatever, but he's written some pretty fantastic songs, and I
He's
think
got the odd moment.
yeah, he's done well. So I kind of I lost myself for a little bit. I was like, fucking hell, Jimmy Page. But then, I mean, there were a few. Steven Tyler came out and sang a song. I heard Matt Sorum was kicking around backstage as well. So there was a lot of kind of like the LA or New York set were there. All the rock stars basically kind of came to that show. But to think that he was walking about in the crowd, I mean, fucking hell! It reminds me of the time I saw Tony Iommi at the ballet.
I saw Tony Iommi at the ballet.
It's a true story. But he was there to see the Black Sabbath ballet. This was months ago. But he sat down in the crowd, like in amongst everyone. And just imagine if you buy your ticket, you sat down in the auditorium, and this voice behind you says, "Oh, do you mind if I sit here? Do you mind if I sit here?" Like that. And Tony fucking Iommi sits next to you. Anyway, so that was a thrill. But yeah, great gig, great night, and fucking Jimmy Page, what a legend.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a Black Crows fan, but one thing I will say about it is that the photos I saw of their stage set was one of the coolest stage sets I've seen. Very, very cool. All the retro amps and all that, really cool like that. But yeah, I'm not a fan, so we'll leave it there. What we want to know about though is Bruce Dickinson.
Yes, fucking hell, that was good. So Kentish Town Forum. Bruce is obviously touring the Mandrake project. He's been out on the road for a while now. He's probably about a month on the road, is it? I
think probably a couple of months now.
Yeah, so he's been busy. And I think we saw him when the album dropped. Got to shake his hand, got our album signed, and I think from that moment on, he was like bang out on tour almost straight away. So the band were really warmed up by the time we got to him. I mean, fucking hell, what can I say? There's something about seeing. I've never seen Bruce Dickinson that close. Actually, no, that's a lie. First time I saw Iron Maiden was at Pinewood Studios, and that was a pretty small gig, but that was like 30 years ago. So this was the first time in a long time I've seen Bruce Dickinson sing in a small venue, and it just struck me, and this is going to sound ridiculous because it's Bruce fucking Dickinson, but it just struck me what a fantastic voice he has. Like seeing it that close up without all the fireworks and the giant eddies and the lasers and the backdrops and kind of all the pomp and circumstance that surrounds Iron Maiden. Just to see him on a stage with a band belting out those songs was incredible. He sounded amazing. Now the band were on great form. It was a mixed set. They took songs from like all the era, or pretty much all the eras of Bruce Dickinson's solo career. He certainly covered, from the earliest up to the stuff from Mandrake Project. The new stuff sounded kind of bigger than it does on the album. It was kind of it had this grandiosity to it, which was great. But the older stuff, you kind of forget how many bangers he's put out as a solo artist. I mean, and I had the time of my life. Absolutely loved it. I took my son with me, so that was great. To have him there, just seeing kind of what it's all about. He's just watched his dad kind of bang on about this thing called heavy metal for far too long. Just to have him see the room light up like it did that night at Kentish Town Forum with Bruce. I'd do it all again. I would. And a message to everyone, he's planning to tour again, and there's clearly Iron Maiden plans in the pipeline as well, because he mentioned that too.
I find the name of the project to be quite interesting, the Mandrake Project, because I think if there's anyone in metal that would actually be involved in some kind of covert government project, it would be Bruce Dickinson, and that's the kind of name it would have. I don't know what the research would be focused on. It would probably be something quite cutting edge, but it's a great name, the Mandrake Project. It's awesome.
It's got exactly Bruce Dickinson written all over it, hasn't it?
It's got yeah. I mean, it's like
he can do whatever the fuck he wants anyway. So
Yeah. I'm just pleased I caught him before, because obviously he's cancelled a few shows.
Isn't it nice?
Yeah,
isn't it nice? Yeah. Isn't it nice when someone who can do whatever the fuck they want in metal then goes and does it and it's good? How many times have people done it and it's been utter shit and you're like, oh no, just stop.
Yeah. That's true. That's a really good point, actually. When you can be indulgent to what you want to do. And we said this about the album at the time when it first came out, didn't we? That it's Bruce unleashed because he hasn't got the confines of Iron Maiden and everything. With that.
And on that point, I have to acknowledge that Bruce got behind the bongos several times in the performance. You've literally got Bruce Dickinson hammering away on this set of bongos, absolutely having the time of his life.
There's a really big frown on Voice of Reason's face then when you said that. Bruce Dickinson behind bongos.
I can't imagine him on bongos, and I'm struggling to. But
I mean, who needs Eddie when you've got a set of bongos?
Fucking hell. I'm just disappointed.
If Richard Feynman can play bongos, then so can Bruce Dickinson.
Bruce Dickinson can do whatever he wants.
Bruce Dickinson invented the bongos.
There was one ticket sat on Ticketmaster, and it was face value, but I felt so fucking rough. I don't think I would have enjoyed it. So next time I've got to see him next time.
Is that the same week you did the hike?
It was just after it, yeah. So it all comes.
So basically, you think that supporting people's mental health is more important than Bruce Dickinson? What's wrong with you?
Bruce Dickinson supports my mental health, so I suppose in turn it all
comes out in the wash. It all works out.
It does. So,
but no, I went into that gig expecting it to be good, and it exceeded my expectations.
There you go. That says it all, doesn't it? Okay, one more thing, just quickly. Let's quickly touch on the Sabbath remasters, the Tony Martin albums, very, very quickly. More so just the general sound of them, how much bigger those albums sound, how much better they sound. I think it was a lot of album remasters. You can kind of lose a lot. Let's talk like the Peace Sells remaster, for instance, which is fucking shocking. But these 4 albums completely just sound fucking great for me, and I will have to bite the bullet and buy that box set, I think, because an original press of Headless Cross is about 150 quid anyway, so you may as well buy the box set and get all 4.
It's true. It sounds amazing. I'm absolutely blown away.
I think I saw a copy in Chelmsford Oxfam.
In the Oxfam shop, yeah. It's on the stairs, isn't it? As you walk up, it was in the wall. Yeah. And it was 140 quid.
Oh, okay. No.
So, yeah.
I saw a while ago. I saw a picture. And it was like Ozzy Osbourne returning home, and he's like on a cane, and he just looks. I think it's close. I think within the next year and a half, we're going to get the news that he's passed away.
Yeah,
which would be a very sad day because it's Ozzy.
They've been talking, haven't they? Because obviously Ozzy wanted to do these final shows at Villa Park, which was mooted to happen this summer. Obviously, isn't happening. So hopefully it'll happen. But they've all been talking that they will perform again all together one last time, and I can imagine it'll be part of that. So I think if we get that moment, because that will actually be the end, and I know we've had it with Sabbath on many occasions, but that will be it, I think, and that'll be a pretty special moment, I think.
Absolutely.
In Birmingham, in Aston as well, where it all began, the four of them, I think that'll be the perfect sort of fitting end. And Ozzy could just kind of go, that's it, I'm done. Cheers, see you later. And off he goes, kind of thing. So yeah. Anyway, Gate Creeper. Let's talk about that, because that was probably the most anticipated metal album this month, I would say. Dark Superstition. They've gradually kind of grown in popularity, Gate Creeper, in the last year or so. They pulled a really big crowd of Bloodstock last year, didn't they? And once I kind of got around the singer's weird body language and whatnot, and it all started to make sense, they were really fucking good. So this album, a lot of people have been anticipating this album, and I will admit, I thought it was just like, after several listens, but I kept with it. And once it clicked, it really fucking clicked. So I'm interested to hear what you guys all think of it.
I think that the band like In Flames.
Just a little bit. They just like Sweden.
Yeah, just a little bit. And I think as well they might have come across bands like The Haunted before.
Yeah, and Entombed and At the Gates, and it's all in
there.
Yeah.
But I've listened to it 3 times, and I need to listen to it again, because one of the reasons why I'm going to listen to it again, I can't remember the track. I think it's the 3rd track. But I think it's either The Black Curtain or Masterpiece of Chaos. There's a really good riff on that song, and that's what pulled me. I was listening to it going, yeah, this is fine. There's nothing wrong with this, but like, I'm not, there's nothing that stands out. And then I heard that song, and I was like, that's a really nice riff. Because I mean, the first couple of tracks, I was like, okay, yeah, In Flames, but I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, because I love In Flames and I don't mind the vocals. But yeah, there are a couple of hooks on this album that there's enough there to make me want to go back and listen again, and there's enough there that I would definitely go and seek them out if I was at a festival and they were playing. So I can see why it's been anticipated, and I need to listen to it more, but it's definitely worth putting in the mix. I do like some. There are some nice elements on it, so definitely worth a kind of exerted effort to get into it. But can we just have one of these albums that you get like straight away? I mean, why does it have to be so much effort?
Yeah, but the ones you have to work at are generally the ones you end up liking the most.
No.
You don't get bored with them. You don't get bored with it.
I mean, this is the thing, like, because I had the same experience as Tregenza. It's like I was looking forward to this album, and each one of the singles that dropped kind of built that anticipation. But when the album came out, for me, it fell strangely flat. Like early on, like first listen, it kind of sort of rolled along without making much impact, and it took the wind out of my sails a little bit, because I had been really looking forward to it. But it comes back to that thing where it's like, yeah, do you know what? I'm going to give this some repeated listen. I just put it on the headphones while I was around and about doing stuff, and then bang, it hit me. And it's so fucking good. It's just heavy and cool, and it hits me in the same way that, like, you mentioned Entombed. That's kind of where it sits with me. That kind of latter day Entombed thing, where they really kind of embraced the rock and roll quite a bit, and everything rolled along a bit more than it did when they were kind of clattering away at death metal. Which is no bad thing, I hasten to add. But yeah, this, again, for me, a little bit like the Jasta album. It's just kind of a very cool album. Love it. Riffs, solos, it's heavy, great guitar tones. What's not to like?
Cool artwork as well.
Yeah.
Could they just have called it Gatekeeper? Why are they called Gatekeeper? Look, just Gatekeep, yeah?
There's another band called Gatekeeper.
There is a band called Gatekeeper, yeah. A bit more power.
Or call themselves the New Gatekeepers. Or the new Gatekeepers.
The Keymasters.
I think what surprised me about this album, and that's more down to just the because of how it's being spoken of in advance, was how straightforward it was. There's not a lot going on in terms of dynamism. Actually, it's just
no.
It's a very HM2 pedal Stockholm sounding death metal album, but very melodic, like really melodic. Probably probably
at times, yeah, massively.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for me, this is more melodic than M2. This is closer to Dismember, I think.
Right. Yeah, that's a good shout. Really good shout.
But it's got that sort of Gothenburg, sort of influence as well. But yeah, what you've got here is just a straightforward collection of good melodic songs, catchy songs, some good riffs, some good hooks. You said earlier about Justa being effortless. This is what it sounds like to me, effortless. They've been knocking at it for a while, and they've just reached a point where they can do this really authentic sort of metal sound with songs.
Yeah.
Albeit still very death metal and growly and whatnot.
You make a good point there about because I think the reason that I was disappointed on the first listen is what had preceded it had led me to believe there were going to be more surprises, more changes in direction, more diversions, and that didn't happen really. It does mark a departure for their sound. They are bringing more melody into what they do, but I was just expecting it to go off on way more tangents and things like that, and it didn't. So I had to get used to that and then just take it for what it is, which is exactly what you've just described it as. And once that clicked into place, it was like, yeah, but you know what they do fucking well.
They've got their own identity now. I think they sound like Gatecreeper, and the Swedish similarities are strong. The one song for me is A Chilling Aura. That song could have come off Jester Race. It's so Swedish that it's almost you have to kind of do a double take. It's like, where did that come from? But at the same time, when they get really melodic, like on A Black Curtain, which I think was a single, I think it was the second single they dropped, it's just catchy and it's almost power chordy. It's just really catchy heavy metal, and I'd be interested to see where they go with it now, because my favorite songs on the album are the more melodic songs. So I'd be interested to see with what direction they go in off the back of this album, what kind of response they get and where it goes from there. So yeah, interesting band, but it is a very, very cool, very enjoyable album. It's a vinyl purchase, I think, without a doubt.
It will be eventually.
Get it on the big speakers.
Yeah. Like I say, good old HM2, you can't beat it. That's about it. I think that was it for the month. Unless anybody's got any other sort of curveballs to throw in just quickly before we knock it off. But I think that was.
No, but apart from the fact that I will this time next week, I will be back in the country.
Oh God. Have you made the authorities aware that you're coming back?
No. They give me a wide berth these days.
Yeah, something fucking should. I think I might go to Saudi Arabia for 8 weeks.
You're welcome to it, mate. Yeah, I mean, they'll take one look at your tattoos and probably amputate something.
Yeah, that's fine. We'll just be left as a bloody stump. But no, we'll welcome you back with open arms, and in 3 weeks' time, no, 2 weeks' time. Fuck me, 2 weeks' time. We'll all be
7 days. 7 days.
No, 2 weeks' time. We'll all be together.
I'll bring the baby oil.
Oh yeah.
Oh hello. I'll bring the Nutella. But that's mad though. Two years we've been doing this, and we've never all been in the same room together at the same time. We got close, but train strikes fucked it up. So, fuck you, Network Rail and Southern Trains and whoever it was. But
it's the what? Yeah. Sorry, I'm getting it mixed up. Yeah. You're right. It's 2 weeks. So you're down in Hastings.
Yeah, 2 weeks on a road trip to Hastings. We won't tell you what for, but it'll be fun nonetheless.
But keep an eye out.
Yeah. Careful what you wish for. So that was it. That was May, and more of the same. We're 101 episodes in now. Thank you to everybody for listening to all those previous episodes. Hope you enjoyed the 100th episode, because it was all a bit self-indulgent, but you know what? Fuck it. It was a lot of good fun doing it. So we will be back next week. Padre, I'm assuming you won't be then if you're going to be traveling back to the UK.
No, I land at like 6 o'clock in the evening, and I will be trying to navigate myself out of Terminal 5 at Heathrow to get to Paddington. So
Right, you'll
That's
still
gonna
be
be
there.
fun
You'll still be
indeed.
there 2 weeks later, so we won't worry about that then. So yeah, until that point, thanks for listening as ever, and stay metal.